Hello.
Hi.
Wrong. Wrong. Make sure this is working.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Andy.
I'm glad you didn't get dressed up today. All right, so I don't know what the hell we're doing. We can all answer things. She'll answer things. Does anyone have questions? You moderate, right? I mean, Okay.
Okay, so I have to ask, since you got married and you have somebody that can cook your food, do you still eat paper?
He will not let me cook for him.
That's not true. If you do cook for me, I'm very much taller than this microphone. I'm gonna hold it. Is that cool?
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
So when we first started dating, Juliet comes from an Italian family, and there's a lot of pasta and cheese and that kind of stuff. And between Warped Tour of 2011 and the first tour that we did in South America in 2012, there's a noticeable gut difference in photos of us. Because when we first started dating, she would make all of these crazy cream pasta bread dishes, and that's all I'd eat 3 meals a day. And then I went on stage and tried to be like shirtless, skinny guy. And I started out needing the brace for my ribs, and then I just realized that I needed the brace to cover my gut that I had developed. So I made like a
What
leather
really
brace.
happened there was I wanted to impress him by being a woman who could cook. And when I found out his favorite things to eat were cheese, bread, and pasta, I was like, I'm Italian.
All of it.
I know how to boil water. I know how to use a microwave. And so he'd come home and I'd be like, look at what I made for you. And it would be like a plethora of just calories.
So much so that I think that's what we had for Christmas that year too. My parents came by. We ate nothing but just like a mountain of cheese for 8 months.
Different types of pastas.
So I don't. We don't necessarily. We kind of cook our own food now. I don't. I change my diet a lot, but I will give her credit that I did not eat any form of vegetable from like Gerber food until about 20, I think. So between that time period, I amazingly survived sans any form of nutrition. And so she introduced me to eating vegetables and things. And now, I was actually tickled. We went to a restaurant and I ordered a bunch of food, and then the man who was my waiter, he goes, "Wow, you really like vegetables, huh?" And it blew my mind because I've always been someone who assumed I didn't. And I'm a vegetarian, not for the animals, but because I hate plants. I'm aggressive towards making sure that they end. No, I don't eat meat. I'm a big animal advocate and everything. It's not for everybody. I'm not forcing anybody else, but for me, I don't eat meat anymore, and it's helped with a lot of my health and stuff, and I feel much better nowadays. So anyway, that's a long-winded form of answer to your question. But
So no paper.
no paper. No paper.
Although paper does come from trees.
Yeah, it's vegetarian. I mean, I can eat it.
Hi.
Hello.
I guess if like 18-year-old you could see you like now, what do you think you would say?
How the fuck is this happening? What is happening with the space-time continuum? If 18-year-old me could see me now, I'll say this: the opposite is true. Where I will sometimes think about that version of myself and feel a combination of like sadness and laughing, I guess, in the sense that, you know, when you're for me, I started touring when I was so young, and Juliet did as well, that you grow up on the road, and the things that you think are cool or whatever else are kind of shaped by the people that you're around. And when you're that young, you're very impressionable to like the rock and roll lifestyle. So 18-year-old me was insufferable and a little too cocky to be around, I think. So if nothing else, I would probably explain to 18-year-old me that, you know, sit down, take your makeup off, and let's have a conversation. And then put your makeup back on, because you look fabulous.
Hi, Andy. I've been a musician for a little over 10 years now as a composer. I've had a little trouble writing my own melody. So this is more of a question for both of you as amazing musicians. How do you guys write your melodies?
Juliet's probably a better writer than me, but.
Aw, it's true. You know, creating melodies for me is, I feel like a melody is an emotion. You know, it can be pretty, it can be happy, it can be sad, it can be haunting. And so I try to direct my melodies towards the communication I'm getting across with my music, whether it's a sad or happy song or whatever it is. So when I'm writing a melody, I actually write the melody to fit with my lyrics and to emote what I'm trying to say to the listener. And that's how I come up with my melodies.
Yeah, I mean, much the same for me. It's, you know, I've been really lucky to work with people like John Feldman, who's, he's got a melody running through his head at all times. And as someone who, for me, I focus a tremendous amount of my effort on lyrics. I've always been a lyricist, and that's, to me, when I sit down to make a record, the story has to be told. So whether it's something like Wretched and Divine, where it's a big, sweeping concept, and, you know, I've written a script and everything else behind it, or it's something like, you know, the Annie Black record, where every song is individual stories. For me, much like Juliet said, the melody really has to match the tone. And I think sometimes people get a little bit caught up in wanting to write something that is sing-alongable or something that'll get stuck in your head. And I think that that can sometimes be a bit of a roadblock towards creativity, because ultimately, if you have something that matches the tone of what you want to write, you can kind of build from there. One of the things that I did when I first started writing was to think, what are the types of songs that I really enjoyed listening to? Not necessarily what kind of artist or what the subject matter of the song was, but in terms of tone. When I listen to a song or listen to music, what is it that kind of gets me off, so to speak? And so, in my very early days of writing melodies, it was all about kind of replicating, not necessarily note for note, but kind of being influenced heavily by things. And then as you grow as a writer, you start to be able to kind of have your bevy of stuff. At this point in my career, I kind of know when I sit down to write the lyrics in a melody for a Black Veil Bride song, there's knowledge of what that band sounds like, and in my head I can kind of set it aside. In the same way that now that I've done the Annie Black thing, there's a separation. But I will be honest with you, it's not always the case where I know the difference. When I was doing the Annie Black record, we were heading towards the end of the album, and there were some songs that we had done, and melodically there was this one song that I loved, but I couldn't really place, it didn't feel right for Annie Black. And I played it for Juliet, and she goes, "Oh, that sounds like a Black Veil Bride song." And so for me, it's like, you know, sometimes there's a differential in terms of tone that isn't necessarily immediately on my mind, but it takes somebody else to kind of come in.
And I will say that, you know, learning tons of covers, and, you know, actually learning how to play them on guitar, play them on piano, sing them, as many as you can possibly learn, that really helped me into becoming a songwriter. That's how I started, was just doing covers. And so the more you learn from, so to speak, our teachers, you know, the bands that we love, the artists we love, it flows into you finding yourself as an artist and the kind of music that that comes from you. And I would say that that's a key thing to becoming a good songwriter, is learning lots of other people's songs too.
Yep.
Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. I'm incredibly hungry, so if you hear my stomach, that's just my stomach. It's not a fart. It might be a fart.
Great.
You just have to wait for me to stop talking about farts. I'm done now.
I have a comment first for Juliet. You made the most stunning bride I've ever seen. So,
Yeah.
Spreading.
Thank you. Thank you.
how do you all find time? And I know you got,
I will actually, I will eat one of these.
I know you got to go on tour with him, but before that, how did you all find time to like connect with each other when you were both, you know, separate in different parts of the world? How did you all like little like things? Did you all like leave notes for each other and mail them, or, you know, not just modern technology stuff, but like little things? How did you all connect with each other?
Right, well, because of technology, it obviously made it a lot easier, because we could FaceTime and Skype, and we could send videos and pictures all day long, and I mean, we utilized that as as much as possible. As far as slow mail, too lazy for that.
Also very hard to send.
I write him songs.
It's hard to send me mail when I'm going to be in a different place every day.
Yeah,
So,
but I'm in the same spot. Where's my mail?
It's true, yeah. I have dropped the ball in the mail. I also shouldn't have taken my jacket off because now I'm cold again, so hold on.
But we would try to stay creative, because I think one of the most important things in a relationship, to keep it alive, is to keep creating on it, to keep doing things like that, you know, making each other little gifts, or sending pictures, or he would send flowers probably at least once a month. And so there's one thing that you sent me.
Yeah, I think in terms of connectivity, the most important thing is to remember that it's very difficult to find the balance of, in any relationship, to find the balance of you miss somebody so much and you feel this sense of loneliness, and then you also don't want to be too aggressive with the affection to where you're ruining someone else's day because they can't set down their phone or whatever it is. I had to learn to a certain degree to stop being such a baby all the time. You know, and that's it. For me, it makes things a little bit less stressful, and the longer you're together and the stronger your relationship gets, you know. I mean, there were certainly times where, to Juliet's credit, I haven't always been where I am now, mentally and everything else, and because we got together when I was probably a little bit too young to truly understand how to be in like a full-fledged relationship, there were times over the years that I probably dropped the ball a little bit. But you hope to be able to get through it, and we did, and obviously now we got married, and things are good now.
I thought you did a good job.
Some of the time, but you know, you can always do a better job, and so I think where we're at now is really good.
And I'm done, I promise. Where do you get your fashion inspiration from? Like, who's some of your favorite designers? Because I like what you're on Instagram and everything, all your little wrap top and everything.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, thank you. A lot of my inspiration, well, I do spend a great deal reading fashion magazines, you know, Vogue and Elle, and you know, I follow a bunch of fashion accounts. I like a lot of high-end stuff to a lot of stuff like Forever 21, and I love, you know, Urban Outfitters, and some LA places like Reformation, and a lot of my inspiration, I try to come up with my own stuff, or I try to get inspiration from fashion in the past. So it's a lot of looking at what was really cool in the past and how I can make it modern. So it's kind of what I do.
My question is for both of you. I know you each have a lot of ink, but what is your favorite piece, or what means the most to you? Because I have two. My first one was my 18th birthday present. My mom and I got matching. And the second one, my stepdad passed away in February. And I'll get it together, give me a second. He was an artist, and one of our jokes was, we had Harry Potter jokes because we're nerdy. And he drew Voldemort one day as a joke on the back of a receipt. And so I got that tattooed, but those mean a lot to me, so I was wondering if there's a certain piece each of you have that either means a lot or is your favorite.
Sure.
Well, first of all, sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
I would say my favorite tattoo, I think my White Rabbit tattoo. It was the first tattoo we ever got together, and it's actually Andy's handwriting.
Yeah, and I have her handwriting on my hand. We got that right when we first started dating, actually.
Commitment.
Yeah, I have her name a few times. I have her name on my right arm, my left arm. I like that. I mean, because for me, I sometimes forget, like I don't really focus on my tattoos, and I got most of them when I was younger. In fact, I tried to get tattooed recently, and I no longer enjoy it. I got about halfway through, I was like, no, I'm done with that, we're good, I did everything. No, but I really liked it when I was younger especially, and so I was collecting memories. And most of my tattoos are not tremendous artwork pieces. There are a lot of little random things. I have a koala bear dressed as me drinking whiskey, like that's, you know, and so, but they all represent in some capacity different parts of my life. So the stuff I have with my wife's name on it, that is to me it's a you know, a moment. Or I got this after the first tour I did after we got married, and so it was a nice little thing. And then there's little stuff. I have Bengals tattoos, and stuff here and there. But it's mostly just like patchwork of memories and different things. I have a tattoo of Vampire Batman on my neck that people think is a pit bull. People think it's a pit bull that is outside of the grocery store while I'm inside the grocery store like 5 times. Let me explain. You ever walked into a grocery store and there's a dog outside?
Yeah.
Right, somebody's tied it up. For some reason, I walk into grocery stores that there is a pit bull that apparently looks like my neck outside all the time. Because people walk up to me and go, and by the way, let's think about this. People walk up to me and go, oh, is that your dog on your neck? I saw him outside. Yes. I love my dog so much that in his most vicious moment when he was bleeding from the teeth, I got him tattooed on my fucking jugular to commemorate him. And now I've tied him up outside waiting for you to talk to me about it. So I'll probably get that one changed. But no, that's the collection.
Now that you've had the experience of being a solo artist and being in a band, as
Sure.
in Black Veil Brides, can you tell us which one you would prefer most, whether being in a band or being a solo artist?
Well, it's different. I think that because I started in a band, that is something that was so comfortable to me, the idea of working by committee on everything and doing things as a group of people towards a common goal. The problem for me was that so early on in my life, when I started the band about 10 or 11 years ago, the people wouldn't necessarily in my hometown commit to being in the band for any amount of time, so there would be kind of a revolving door. You know how it is with garage bands and everything, people are in the band for a week or whatever. But I kept the same name. So if you look at the stat line, it looks like I had about 26 different people in the band, but the reality was that it took until about 2009 for me to find the lineup that you guys all know, the people that make up the band. And when we found that lineup, we got to the point where we agreed that it was a band. For those of you who don't know, everybody in Black Veil Bride splits everything evenly. It's not my band in the sense that I make any more money than anybody else or anything like that. However, it is a band that I started when I was young, so I always felt a sense of pride towards it, and I was so proud that I found these other people who invested their lives, and it made me feel so great in my heart that there's these other people who invested their lives and believed so much in something that when I first thought of it as a kid, I didn't know that it would mean so much to other people, and it is just as much CeCe's band or whoever's band as it is mine. And so with that dynamic, you have an entirely different existence when you're on stage, and you have a different existence in the studio. And then to be able to go and do a solo record where it was me every day just going in and working with some friends of mine. I bring in people like Gerard Way and so many other cool people that came in and were on the record. And that was an entirely different experience. So much so that I don't know that I could necessarily prefer one over the other because they're so vastly different. It's the difference between, playing catch by yourself and killing time and having fun, or playing in a game and, maybe win or lose. Sometimes you just want to hang out by yourself and spend time and do something that is on your own, and then sometimes you want to hang out with a group of people and do something that's for the better, the greater good of the whole group. As far as moving on in my career and continuing on, I don't want to stop doing the Andy Black thing because I like to go outside and play catch by myself sometimes. So, yeah, I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy doing the band, and I think that there's room in my life to do both, and I think there's room in my life to do a lot. I know that one of the things that younger people in particular get concerned about when they see an artist that they love, in their mind, dispersing themselves, is that they're doing too much, or I missed when you were just dedicated to Black Veil Brides. You have to understand that I don't have a fucking job. So all day long, I dedicate myself to making this thing and trying to create this art so that I can continue to feel sustained. I can do enough to support my family. I can do enough to make enough money to be able to know that Juliet and I will have a future. And it's my responsibility to continue to work my ass off because I've been given an opportunity by you guys to continue to be in the public eye in some capacity. So it's not me spreading myself too thin, it's me doing the work that you deserve to have. You deserve to have the Andy show, you deserve to have an Andy Black record and a Black Veil Brides record and everything else because you've given me this chance, and so it's up to me to continue to work my ass off and to use the time that I've been given before people stop giving a shit. Good? All right.
So I have two questions. They kind of go hand in hand. I would ask, how did you guys find your sound as an artist, and who are your biggest inspirations?
Well, like I said before, one of the keys to finding your sound is to learn as much as you possibly can from your influences. A lot of influences of mine are artists like David Bowie, Foo Fighters, Joan Jett, Stevie Nicks, Janis Joplin, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Aerosmith. And so just like you learn as much as you can from your teachers, and then you start to write, and you write your own material, and that's where you really find your voice and your sound, because you're creating something new. You're creating something that hasn't been heard yet, so you get to make it your own. And every individual artist, everybody who sings or plays guitar or writes songs, is their own person. They're their own originality. And so that's how you ultimately create your voice and your sound, is writing songs. Writing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, much the same. I always joke that the first songs I wrote were just terrible Misfits songs. You know, but that's okay, because you learn.
The first songs I wrote were just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people, there's a part of there's a basic thing in humans where if you do something and you can inherently know that it sucks, you kind of back off and say, I don't want to do this anymore. Some people don't have that. Some people are unabashedly just kind of, you know, think that everything they do is great, and that's fine. But I think having some ability to self-analyze and know that what you're doing isn't necessarily fantastic is good in the long run, because you go, okay, well, this isn't that great, but I really want to do it. And so that was kind of the thing I had, was I knew that I wasn't writing great songs, but I knew I would probably get better, because every other thing I had done in my life, there was that example existed. When I first sat on a bike, I couldn't ride it, but eventually I got better over time.
Yeah, like I would say when I first started writing songs, for every 5 songs I wrote, one of them was good. And I would certainly start writing a song, and I'd spend 2 days on it, and I'd get halfway through, and I'd be like, this is shit. And I would just start over. Just, nope, trash can. And yeah.
I don't think I had that, where I would write a terrible song and I would see it to the end. And I would try to convince other people about how great it is. Put it on a CD, give it out to people at school, tell everybody about how awesome it was, knowing in my heart that it wasn't very good, but just really trying to give a sales pitch to everybody about how awesome it was. And then eventually I'd start writing again after about 2 weeks of that, after I'd made the t-shirt to give everyone with the song title on it. No, but I think, you know, I grew up in sports. I played a lot of sports as a kid, and so I had the basis of, I worked really hard at this thing physically and spent a lot of time studying it, and I got good at it because of that. And so to me, it was applying the same things. And the same goes for any other thing. You know, for me, I grew up loving a lot of the things that are here today, comic books and face painting and art and makeup and that kind of stuff was a lot of fun for me. And I sucked at all of it at first, and I got better over time.
Yeah, you have to become really, really, really obsessed with it. Just like so obsessed, like you're a crazy person, obsessed. And that's when you know, practice makes perfect, and that's when you really, you know, grow and become the artist that you're meant to be.
I have a question for Andy. Is it true that you are secretly Batman?
I don't think it's a secret.
I gave you food.
Yeah.
Are you gonna go on Warped Tour for your BBB5?
Well, I mean, that's a ways away. I don't think the next Blackfoot record will probably come out until after this next Warped Tour. The Andy Black cycle, for me, I said I would do a year with the Andy Black record. I'm going to see that through. So I'll do a few more Andy Black tours, and then we're about, I would say, 2 or 3 songs away from finishing the Blackfoot record. So, and it's really fantastic. Juliet's a big fan of it.
Oh my
so.
gosh, I'm obsessed.
Yeah,
so good.
I'm really, really happy with it. We all are, and so that'll probably come out next year, and everything will ramp up. But you'll probably hear some songs, single or something, before too long.
First off, we drove over 5 hours to come see you. We're from
Fantastic.
Ohio.
Wow.
Thank you.
My question is, how come your music doesn't seem to be like mainstream? I don't really hear it on radio like
Sure.
it should be.
I think, well, I mean, I'm
It's
not
because
gonna-
the radio sucks and his music doesn't.
I mean, I could make excuses for myself or the genre or whatever else, but the reality is, it's all about timeline and where you are in terms of society and culture. And one of the saddest things that happened to rock music was that it built itself up in the 80s to the point where it was kind of about to burst in terms of art and culture and fun and decadence, where it got to the point where someone kind of needed to bring it down and humble it, and by doing that, unfortunately, you sort of removed the fun from it. And as you go into the 90s and you have the grunge era and everything, which a lot of great music came out of it, but it removed the fun and the art and all the stuff that we all love as people that are at this convention who love visuals and everything else. That kind of went away from rock music in many ways. And what happened in the interim was you had a burgeoning genre of hip hop, which involved art and culture and fashion and all this other stuff that a young kid wants to see. Rock guys were talking about how shitty everything was and how disgusting everything was, and hip hop guys were talking about coming from nothing, making money, having a good life, all stuff that when you're a younger kid you kind of want to see, and that's what rock stars used to do. The culture shifts to hip hop music primarily, dance music primarily, because it's all fun based. And even though rock has shifted back, and we all know this because we listen to rock music, has shifted back to a lot more elaborate stuff. You have so many bands that you guys love, I'm sure, bands like Motionless in White and all these bands that have this visual component to it. The rest of the world sees rock music in many ways as kind of passé, because they look at something like Rock of Ages, and the punchline is, remember rock music? And they don't think about it as a current and viable thing. We come into issue all the bands that are what called the Warped Tour bands, where we will sell a great deal of records the first week and chart, and then the rest of the industry looks at it and goes, well, they'll be gone next week because Warped Tour bands don't do well, or whatever you want to call it. And so it is an uphill climb to get onto mainstream terrestrial radio because people don't believe in the genre the way they used to. They all want to say that they do. Every meeting I go into, and every record I've made, people go, I love rock music. Oh, you're bringing it back. That's great. And then when it comes down to it, rock music doesn't line their pockets the way that hip hop and everything else that the label does. So they'll wear their leather jacket to my show, and then they'll go back to their office and not pay attention. And so it's a frustrating push and pull. People that a lot of misinformation goes around. All of us in bands, we're not anybody that you should feel bad for. We're not in a dire situation, but none of us are making exceptional amounts of money. And music doesn't really pay my bills. It's everything else I have to do to keep that going, touring constantly and everything else. And so if you Google my name and my value and all that stuff, there's a lot of misinformation about how much money we make. And I think that also leads to a problem with the genre, is that people think, well, rock music, they're rock stars, they're probably all millionaires and they don't need my support. The reality is rock bands, not mine necessarily, but many young rock bands need people to feverishly support them because they don't get the support that they need. I'm lucky enough that my band came around just before the bottom kind of dropped out, and we got at least some mainstream success. If I walk into a mall, people recognize me or whatever, but a lot of young bands don't have that. And I look at the young bands today, and I think it's a duty of everybody who listens to rock music to really try to support, because it is a very scary place out there for a young band. There's no money in doing it, you gotta do it for the passion, and I think that there's beauty in that because people are really just doing it for the art. So any young band that you see come playing in a 100 capacity club in your town is doing it because they love the art, not because they're gonna get on the radio or become famous, because it's very unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, radio's run so differently now than it used to be run. You know, now you have record labels going to radio stations, pushing their artists, and by pushing, that means paying lots of money to push certain artists to radio. It's not like where it used to be like a DJ was like, oh, I discovered this band and I discovered this song and I'm gonna
Right, I mean, it's
play
all
the music.
corporately owned. You have the companies that own the stations dictate the playlist. And so when you listen to your top 40 station, that playlist is dictated by outside sources, the company that owns the company that owns the company. And so it's very hard. The times that Andy Black has been on terrestrial radio is because someone at a station has taken a chance. My hometown in Cincinnati, the alternative station there, have been playing We Don't Have to Dance, and that's a huge thing because It doesn't happen everywhere. People probably saw a video, who were like big fans, saw a video of me listening to We Don't Have to Dance on K-Rock, which is the big station in LA, and I was freaking out because that stuff doesn't happen. In all the years of Black Veil Brides and everything, we don't really have much radio support, but neither did Kiss or many of the bands that I love, so that wasn't necessarily something that I grew up thinking about. I remember as a kid, radio didn't seem like it mattered to me because I heard Rock and Roll All Night once a year when Kiss came into town and never again, and it was just Nirvana and Led Zeppelin the rest of the day. And so for me, I looked and went, oh, fuck that, I don't care. But when it comes to Andy Black, radio could have stood to push the project and can do a lot more. So, we hope we have, we get a lot of radio play in England and a lot of other places. The Andy Black project has done better at radio than anything else I've done. But it's also the genre lends itself to that a little bit more. So it's all about risk taking. There are stations, WJJO in Madison, there's a few other places where they've always backed Black Veil Brides and they've always put us on their playlist, but it's kind of a crapshoot,
We've got time for one more question up front.
Do either of you have any performance tips? Because I'm kind of new to the whole, I'm the accompanist for my high school's chorus.
Okay.
And so this is very new to me. And anytime I get on stage, if I had to look at the audience or I can see them, my hands start to shake and I don't play as
Just
well
be known as Old Crazy Hands.
Yeah.
This is what you do. You walk on stage like this and do it in front of the crowd, dazzle them a little bit, wear shiny gloves.
I can relate to that so much because when I first started singing in front of people, I was about 6 or 7 years old. And my body would be trembling so much that it sounded like I had this incredible vibrato. But it was just me being petrified. And that didn't go away for a long time. That went away after I played show after show after show after show and just forced myself on stage as many times as possible, hundreds and hundreds of times, until finally you're so at ease and you're so comfortable in front of people, it just becomes second nature. And so you just have to kick your own ass up on the stage and just do it over and over again, and eventually that subsides.
Yeah, I had, I've never been afraid to be on stage necessarily, because I'm an asshole who thinks everybody needs to watch me. But I certainly, the first Andy Black show that I had, I experienced, not necessarily stage fright, but kind of like what you're talking about, where I was kind of like, because I had never done anything like that. I had been playing with a band since I was 16. So going out as just myself, I was freaked out. So I think everybody experiences it. It's nothing weird or different. Again, maybe just make it part of your act. Jazz hands. Telling you. If you notice I'm trembling too much, just shiny gloves, do it behind your back, over your eyes.
Learn to do the splits, throw in some back bends.
Everyone should learn to do the splits anyway. I'm gonna try that.
Splits and jazz.
That'll be the beginning of every Black Veil Bride show will just be me doing the splits both ways.
I actually can do the splits both ways.
Going to the hospital. Do we have to be done, or can we take any more? Oh, we got somebody waiting. All right, well, guys, we are done, unfortunately. I would like to talk to you
Yeah,
more.
we would, but that guy.
We gotta.
No, not you.
Not you. The guy, the imaginary person outside the door.
The guy that I won't say that to.
Yeah, in her mind, there's like a big Grim Reaper guy outside the door
Yeah,
about to bust in. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it, and that was a lot of fun. And give it up for your MC here. He's fantastic.